Good afternoon, class. How are you all doing today? Oh, boy, fantastic. I don't know why I raised my voice. Just felt like it. Sometimes we gotta do what we feel like doing. Okay, so that being said and all out of the way, today and tomorrow, because I have a class on something that somebody actually asked for while we were still kind of sheltered in place. So I try to stop with the ums. And so we're gonna go over it. And it's also quite fitting because it's February, and February is Black History Month. I didn't know this, but the reason I found this out, but the reason they designated February as Black History Month, a lot of people have different reasons. But I was watching a basketball game, and the announcer actually said, "Hey, just found out," and I was like, "Hey, actually, I didn't know that." But Black History Month is actually the reason they chose it, because Abraham Lincoln's birthday is in February, as well as Frederick Douglass, both very prominent abolitionists, and believed in, obviously, ending enslavement in the United States. And so that's why they went with February. Just tidbit. But the class that the person asked, and like I said, it's coincidental, but at the same time, it's good that it's for Black History Month. But it's on meeting the tribes in Africa, so different, like kind of the culture of Africa. And so we're going to go by tribes, and it's by region. So Africa is big, so there's a lot of different regions in Africa, and so we'll go tribe by tribe and region by region. The reason I'm saying that it'll be a two-part class is because this is a lot of information, and it's a lot to take in, so I want to make sure that maybe we spend, 12 to maybe 15 minutes per day on it, and then that's it. But we want to cover it thoroughly. So, here we go. Here it is. I don't know why it says Meet Singles Online. Just printed out when I printed it out, so strange. Alright, so here we go. So Africa is known as a tribal continent, even though it is not always the determining factor in a nation's life. So colonial powers took little notice of tribes when they drew their national boundary lines. The result is that several tribes overlap into 2 or 3 modern-day countries. Interesting. In countries like Egypt, the population is described as Egyptian or Arab without reference to origins. The subject of tribes and ethnicity in Africa is one of fascination, so it is amazing. Over the years, adventure films have portrayed tribes as living as their ancestors did. This is true. This is what Hollywood does. As their ancestors did generations before. It makes for a good story, and in many instances, it does still apply today. In others, it most certainly does not, as the culture has changed or evolved. So just remember, a lot of times you'll see films, and they portray tribes in Africa as certain ways. Well, in some cases, it's still kind of true. It is more traditional. In other cases, it's really not, and it's just fantasized. So with around 3,000 tribes and 2,000 languages and dialects, Africa is a continent with fascination around every corner. I would love to go visit one day. I really would. So, other continents of the world lacks Africa's natural diversity. Some are well developed, largely industrialized. And the tribe has never been a factor. Community. Yes, but social status rather than origin has been the important factor. Okay, so now we're going to go over the differences between ethnicity and tribe. So this is an important distinction. So it is important to understand the difference between an ethnicity and a tribe. A tribe is an organization of people who share the same culture and language. History can point to the success of a tribal organization as a means of living, if not particular means of creating wealth and well-being. So in the days when African life was largely rural, which just means living out in the country, as opposed to urban or suburban, few members moved away from their tribal areas. The growth of conurbations began to change that to a limited extent as people sought work rather than living a subsistence lifestyle. And so subsistence lifestyle just means you subsist off of what is around you. So you subsist from nature. You subsist from utilizing plants, animals, the environment around you, finding water, making sure you survive that way. Also using the land in terms of subsistence to build shelter and things like that. But that's what they mean by subsistence lifestyle. Now that's a tribe, so it's an organization of people sharing the same sort of subsistent lifestyle, but also the same cultural norms and things like that within that tribe. Now ethnicity is a broader term, much bigger. An ethnic group can include several tribes. The Ashanti, Ikoms, and Bonus are all tribes within Ghana in West Africa, yet in ethnic terms they are all Akans, A-K-A-N-S. It was the colonial powers who introduced the idea of nationalism into Africa, but it is not something that everyone has embraced. So, tribal differences have created conflict even within recent decades, although the conflict has been between tribes within the same nationality. So again, it's kind of in a broader range where they're different tribes, but at the same time they're considered kind of one big tribe in an area. Maybe sharing some of the same cultural beliefs and heritage, but then in some ways vastly different. Families came from different places to make that tribe itself. But think of it as kind of I'm trying to think of the best way. But I don't know, kind of like a neighborhood, where we kind of all come together and it's like, well, I live in this neighborhood with my neighbors. I kind of know them. We all come from different places, but this is our neighborhood. We're not all, but there's certain things that we like, if something goes on, neighbors kind of tell each other, but we're not all, and even in my neighborhood, there's different ethnic groups to where, there's different populations of people that you can see and notice that there's a large population there. But again, not all the same. They didn't come from all same places, even when it's the same group. Say, there's Caucasian, there's white, there's black, there's Latino, Latina, there's Pacific Islander, things like that. But even if you come from, say you're considered Asian, Asia's huge. Or even if you're Caucasian, if you're a white person, you're we come from lots of different places, and our ancestors come from a lot of different places, but we're still living in the same neighborhood and have some same value. Like I live in this neighborhood. Anyway, that's the best I can come up with. Sorry. So the Biafran War in Nigeria half a century ago devastated large parts of eastern Nigeria, as the LGBO unsuccessfully sought independence. Well, not Igbo. As the Igbo, tribes unsuccessfully sought for independence. Rwanda is a more recent case in a point with the Tutsi subject to genocide by the majority Hutu in the decade of the 20th century. And that was a scary thing. The Hutu and the Tutsis, the Hutus try to kill off the entire tribe of the Tutsis. So that there wouldn't even be a tribe anymore that anybody could associate with that name. Mass genocide. Kill. And that's what went over everything in Hutu villages was kill every Tutsi. Every single person. Man, woman, child, everybody. They didn't want one Tutsi left living at all. And the interesting thing is that we didn't get involved. The U.S. England, France, a lot of places around there that usually when the genocide, when that happens, when a group tries to annihilate another, like the Nazis did with Jewish folks, we're supposed to step in. I forget. It's not NATO, but we're supposed to step in. Countries are supposed to step in and say, hey, no. What they said in the cases of the Hutu and the Tutsis is they didn't call it genocide. They said it was acts of genocide. So, acts of it, but not it itself. Which is just kind of I don't know how to be kind about this. It's kind of a slimy way to get out of it. Say, oh, it's acts of genocide. We don't have to help. Whatever happens, happens. No, it was genocide. The Hutus were trying to kill every single last Tutsi. It didn't happen. Eventually, we did step in. I mean, we like the countries that are supposed to help did eventually, and the Tutsis survived. So contrast that with Rwanda and Ghana, where tribal and ethnic pride exist, but so does national pride. This Western African state adheres to democracy despite its tribal diversity. Africa is a vast continent which can be broadly divided into regions, although climate and vegetation are both factors in deciding which countries, and hence their people, belong to which region. Here are some tribes that give you a general idea of their history and lifestyle. So again, climate, like what the weather's like, what you can eat there, and what's happened throughout time in those areas. What has happened throughout time in those areas that they learned how to survive off the land. Okay, I'll stop talking so much because we're only on page 2. So let's go into North Africa. While some would say that North Africa is merely made up of countries bordering the Mediterranean, there is a strong case for including the relatively dry countries on the southern border of the Sahara as belonging to the north. And the Sahara Desert is huge. Not surprisingly, for such a huge region, there's a significant diversity of peoples, and although there are cities on the Mediterranean, life has been largely nomadic for many of the tribes within the Sahara and the Sahel. So a brief look at just 3 tribes for the purposes of this article will illustrate differences and similarities that exist among these people in North Africa, so a giant region, and probably more tribes than 3, but they're going to go over the 3 and what they're. So here's the Tuareg, and then this I can't pronounce, Bedouin. Let's see, so the Tuareg are a large tribe of Berber ethnicity occupying huge areas of the Sahara Desert. As nomadic pastoralists, they travel to seek food and water. As a result, they are found in Mediterranean countries such as Libya and Algeria, as well as countries in the region known as the Sahel on the Sahara's southern border, such as Niger. Now, the Bedouin people, very good. It's gone a little bit faster. Yeah. So once I'm done with North, I'll hold off until tomorrow for the rest. The Bedouins are also nomads of Arabic origin who live in the northeast of Africa but have also spread across Iraq and the Arabian Peninsula. The name comes from the Arabic word Badawi, meaning desert dweller. Largely Muslim naturally, they tend goats and camels. So you see the difference between the Tuareg and the Bedouins. And the Bedouins tend to stay in one spot, whereas the former, they tend to go out in search of water and vegetation and different things like that. They tend to travel and migrate. And then finally in North Africa, there's the Dogon. The Dogon are a branch of the Niger-Congo language group, a tribe of anything between 400 and 800,000 people. They live in villages in good defensive locations on the central plateau of Mali and into Burkina Faso. It is thought that they originally headed from the north to avoid Islamization which means a lot of times what happens is a religion will move into a place and they'll force people to practice their religion. And so that's what Islamization is. Okay, well, yeah, and it happens with Christians too, Christianization. Where it's like they move in and say, hey, we'll help you, but you got to be Islam, or we'll help you, but you got to be Christian. And so it's a lot, and sometimes it's with violence. It's not just, with kindness, kind of like the Crusades. So they originally headed north to avoid Islamization, and their lives revolved around their traditional religion, though some are now Muslims and others Christians, like I said. Famous for their art and their astronomical knowledge, the Dogon survived by growing crops and keeping livestock. Well, all right. Sorry. Unless you're a huge Matthew McConaughey fan, I apologize. And even if you aren't, I did a terrible job, I apologize. Anyway, we will finish this up tomorrow. And yeah, if there's any questions, anything like that thus far, let me know. But we still have west, south, and east to cover. So, we'll be back tomorrow to get all those, but at least now we have a background and we know about Northern Africa. Alright, I'll see you tomorrow.